Welcome back, travelers, to Legendary Lore, where today we're doing the last of the 5 side stories. And it's kind of weird because it's going to incorporate some of the first and the third stories from the main storyline. And it's kind of messed up because we should be getting a story about a Rivadeer. Jaxis, or Yaxis, however they pronounce her name. Specifically, she was supposed to get her own storyline. But instead, they shoehorned this one into here. And we don't get to see any of the Rivadeer stuff happening. It's most likely the reason why Kid Kanto had so many Rivadeer legends show up was because of Jaxis getting kind of pushed out. But our story for this one, just to give a quick little snippets of the first story, the first main story, Vivian's here. And for the first time ever, she actually is doing something that feels like it's like something interesting that actually like kind of draws you in. Yeah, Ikoria had some interesting-ish things with her, but Luca was like the heart of that like conflict. Vivian was kind of just there to be like, yeah, people are terrible. Civilization is terrible. But here we see that her journey that she's on really is to find the balance between nature and civilization so that she can release the animals that are in the Arkbow properly. And it's just like a really interesting like mention of that, and it very quickly devolves as she goes into the Chaldea and she gets further and further into it, and she meets Tezzeret. Now we know that Tezzeret was working with the new Phyrexians. We also know that he had regrets about it because of the album from Kamigawa. In One with Phyrexia, the actual song, it's from Tezzeret's perspective, and he says that Tamio suffered a fate worse than death. And it says that she'll never be the same. She fights in New Phyrexia's name, all this other stuff. And just the fact that he's singing about it and he's showing his regret in that song, it shows you the kind of like what's actually going on in Tezzeret's head. That's why I'm so interested in the new Capenna album, because there's a song for Urabrask, and once I can find out what he's actually saying in the song, because I can't understand any of what he's saying, we'll have a better idea of what's actually going on in Urabrask's head and where he stands. So, with that all said, Tezzeret is here, and we get an idea of what his plans are. And she's following Tezzeret. She knows who he is. She knows he can't be trusted, and she's still following him for some reason. And as they go through, she kind of like is getting ready to like fight him if she needs to. And he says that he describes the glow of the planar bridge and how it was corrupted after he passed the Phyrexians through it, because that's Tezzeret's whole deal. Also, you may have noticed that in the actual story, I didn't mention Tezzeret really as a possible thing until like the very end. Vivian and Tezzeret both would be possible. I'm going to redo that bit. You may have noticed that in the Phyrexian episode that we just did, Phyrexian Planeswalkers, we didn't really talk about Vivian or Tezzeret. And that's mainly because I feel like if Vivian does get completed, she'll wind up green-red and working like as a direct member of the good guys, but it doesn't really seem likely. As we go through, you'll see what I mean. And Tezzeret, we already know, is immune to the Phyrexian contagion, and if anything, he's going to be wind up used as a vessel for the Father of Machines kind of deal, like become the new Yawgmoth essentially, or at least try to once everything settles, because he's working with Urabrask. If he's able to overthrow New Phyrexia, he'd have the perfect opportunity to do it then and make things even worse. Because he says he wants something. That's what we find out as it goes through, is that he wants something from the Phyrexians, and that's the only reason he's working with them, and that he actually had it planned on them succeeding in Phyrexianizing Planeswalkers, which freaks him out because that's not what's supposed to happen. And so he's working double time essentially to try and get his quadruple crossing out of the way and get what he wants. That said, he is immune because of Nicol Bolas, giving him essentially an anti-oil kind of thing, like a serum that will protect him. But here, he talks about how the bridge has been corrupted by the Praetors, and now it glows red instead of blue. And so he talks about how they're going to visit someone who can help. And so it's basically there's a Praetor in New Capenna, And we already know the New Capenna had Phyrexians, but those are Phyrexians from Yawgmoth's brood, and they're just kind of an offshoot that were left there. This is Urabrask, the best of the Phyrexian Praetors, second possibly only to Elish Norn in epicness and scale. But Urabrask, of course, he's just this tiny, essentially, he looks a bit like a wingless dragon with those back bits. I always wanted to believe that he was actually Slowbad, who had just been corrupted and repurposed into this thing, because Slowbad was like a huge hero of the original Mirrodin block, and we do have Glisa, who was completed. I always thought it'd be really cool if this was Slowbad, but it's probably not the case. If it were, they probably would have already talked about how that was like the source of why he's able to fight back against the Phyrexians. But she basically meets him, the Praetor of the Quiet Furnace. And Urabrask's immediate like response is that he's like, he feels like he's in danger. You betrayed me. And the reason he says that is because going through the portal completely wrecks a person. It just tears them apart, because it's not supposed to be for organics, but because Praetors are essentially like sentient metal beings meshed with the organics, they're able to pass through. It's the same reason that I think Tezzeret really wants control, because I think he wants to be completely metal. He wants to get rid of all forms of organics on him and become essentially an artifact planeswalker, similar to how Karn works, which would be really cool for Tezzeret to see him kind of go like full on into that. But that said, here we have Urabrask, and Tezzeret's like, calm down. It's actually a new ally. And Vivian does not trust Tezzeret or Urabrask, because one is someone who is working directly with Nicol Bolas, who is incredibly dangerous and evil. The other one is Urabrask, who is a Phyrexian, who is famously known as a species for ruining everyone's days by turning you into goop and then making you basically a monster. And so Tezzeret's like, look, I know neither of you would trust the other right now, but we all consider New Phyrexia to be our enemy. And she's like, you're not like, he goes like, this is a bad idea, Tezzeret. like no one thinks that Phyrexians should control everything. We know that. Everyone's on the same side. We're all good. And he says, like, Vivian's still confused, because she's like, Urabrask is a Phyrexian. Why would a Praetor work against Elish Norn? It barely makes any sense for a Phyrexian in general. A Praetor, a leader, why? And Urabrask is like trying to sit upright because he's wounded again, and he's getting up and he's like, Elish Norn has dominated all of New Phyrexia. Jin Cataxius, Vorinclax, and many of the Black Thanes have pledged themselves in the spheres to her grand vision. But I serve no one, and those I lead wish to be left alone. We do not share Norn's vision. Norn wants the multiverse to be one singularity, for all life to be Phyrexian, and all Phyrexians to be under Norn. We do not consider that progress. I will not give her the quiet furnace. So yeah, Urabrask has his own ideas, and he thinks that he is going to be able to challenge Norn for control. So essentially, according to Vivian, she thinks of it as a revolution, and that's what Urabrask wants, is to lead a challenge to Norn's control. And she's like, well, how are you going to win? And so Urabrask essentially tells her that he has an idea, but he needs to recover. And so they make a deal that there's only two things he really needs. Time to heal Halo. The latter is a magic substance of its plane that I need to study. Bring me Halo. Be patient, and I will tell you how we will bring Norn down from the throne. And she's like, okay, that's reasonable. We'll do that. We'll see how all that goes. That's what we're going to work with. And so they make a deal, and they decide, okay, we're going to work on that. And he goes, while you hunt for Halo, there's someone else I need. Even if I had the strength to look for her, I can't move freely on this plane without suspicion. Elspeth, a planeswalker. Tezzeret spotted her on the surface, but wouldn't risk approaching her due to their history. And she's like, well, but why Elspeth? What do you need with her? She goes, Norn fears her. That is all I know. And it's really cool that we get this moment Elish Norn, one of the most, like, right now, Elish Norn is the big bad of magic. Emrakul's in a moon. Bolas is on a meditation realm. Tezzeret is dangerous, but he's working for the Phyrexians. The big bad, ultimately, right now, is Elish Norn. We haven't seen Elish Norn in recent time. We don't know how Elish Norn looks, because Elish Norn is constantly adding things and like taking things off. Like, Elish Norn is supposed to be this monstrosity. And here we have Elspeth, who essentially would be the only way to save the new Phyrexia. Elish Norn fears Elspeth, recognizes Elspeth's power, essentially, which is interesting considering that we have Koth, who is the only other planeswalker besides Karn that she'd be interacting with. She manipulated Karn in the past. She probably doesn't fear him as much. And then Koth, she's been dealing with him no problem so far, probably even Phyrexianizing by this point. So Norn has no reason to fear anyone else but Elspeth, because she doesn't know what Elspeth is doing. It's just really cool. The story then skips and goes into what's actually, it's a story that takes place essentially in the main storyline that I'll cover more in depth there. But basically Vivienne meets Elspeth and establishes a connection with her. And then it comes back to as she's like following Elspeth and getting like a better idea of what's going on. It really is just the actual story. Like, the majority of this is the actual just normal storyline until Vivienne gets all that information from Elspeth and returns like back to Urabrask. And she says, I found Elspeth. You did? Why is she not with you? She's not ready to leave yet, because he wants her to leave the place and go. And he goes, can we not make her ready? She's like, no. Then we will wait. She is the key to our success. I will not depart without her. Her spark will ignite my people and the Mirrans both. And that's a really weird, specific thing for him to say. I will not depart without her. Her spark will ignite my people and the Mirrans both. I don't like the fact that he says spark. I know he's red, so he might be thinking of spark as in like ignition, but it feels like he might actually be after Elspeth's planeswalker-ness and want to complete her, which if he does would make her the white-black planeswalker that we were talking about. But she could just easily become white-red based on the fact it would be corrupted by Urabrask. It could also just be him choosing words lackadaisically. And she's like, the city is at its breaking point, and I suspect that when it does, Elspeth will know if she's found what she's looking for or not. Then break it faster! I love the idea that this guy doesn't understand like these specific things, ready, breaking, all that stuff. And she says, look, I'll be ready when Elspeth is ready. We won't delay. I know just where to find her when the time comes. So I'm just going to tell you right now, this is not really going to lead anywhere in this current storyline. It's kind of disappointing, but all we know is that Urabrask is here, and he knows, and like they're informing that Ob Nixilis is going to try and wreck everybody's day, and Urabrask is waiting to find out if Elspeth's going to help him, and we're never going to see Urabrask again in the story, not in the new Capenna story. He does eventually leave to New Phyrexia, most likely to build up and like be like, we have Elspeth on our team, there is hope, we can rally against this kind of thing. But other than that, we don't really have anything. He just kind of disappears from the storyline. They don't bother going into one of this really cool idea. We don't get to see why he looks so epic and Batman-esque in his alternate artwork that looks like he's actually like fighting against he is the terror that burns in the night, whatever. None of that. We know that he was recuperating. By the end of the story, he feels better. He decides he's just going to wait and experiment with the halo. There's a moment where you see him experimenting with the halo, and he actually recoils when he's holding it. Like it hurts him to be touching halo. So we know the halo can actually be an anti-Phyrexian thing. We don't know if it reverses the Phyresis. We don't know if it's going to completely obliterate things. It could be basically the way to heal the Phyrexian planeswalkers is to give them this vial of halo, essentially. But we don't really know what it will do. And it's an interesting deal, and he knows that it's going to take time for him to like recover. So Urabrask is going to be important. He's going to be a leader. I'm hoping we'll see him. I'm hoping that we'll actually get to see like maybe a red-white Urabrask. I'm kind of hoping that after we see all the respective praetors show up, that we're going to get to see multicolor versions of them, showing like where they've dipped into other colors. And I feel it'd be really cool to see a red-white variant of this guy. Black-green Shaldrid. I feel like Ellis North should be a full-on 5-color praetor, but that's all different things. And yeah, the praetors are representative of their respective colors, and it probably not be a good idea to dip into that. But Urabrask needs to show up again. He needs to show up again and be super epic mythic boy and do his deal, because he kind of got tossed out down the drain. And again, my biggest gripe with this story, it hasn't actually shown up. And it's not Vivian this time. I actually liked Vivian's role in this story and how she worked, and how she's got threads now. She's not just like, I hate society because society destroys nature. No, she has an actual plot line now, and she has like these motives, and she's connected to Phyrexia. I'm excited for what's coming. And this was the last of the 5 side stories. Joe is currently getting a stock of Halo, so he'll be back for the main storylines, hopefully, and possibly even in person. And so we'll get to see how all that goes. Thank you guys for watching these storylines, and we will see you guys in the next episode. And until then, travel well.